My name is Siuta. I am from the Admissions Recruitment Office at NYU Silver School of Social Work. I have with me 5 fantastic panelists. They're all current Masters of Social Work students. They're from different programs, so we're hoping to get a variety of perspectives. I will allow them to introduce themselves with their names, their pronouns, and their programs. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Hi everyone, my name is Siuta. I use she, her, herself pronouns. I'm in the 2-year Shanhai and New York MSW program. Because I am a dedicated student, I have to leave in about 20 minutes to go to a class. But I would like to say, especially since we got a late start, if there are people who have questions about the Shanghai and New York program, if you can enter the questions, I'm happy to answer them at another time.
Hi, my name is Nathanson. I'm a 2-year student in the Washington Square program, and my pronouns are she, her, herself.
Hi, my name is Mary Burns. My pronouns are also she, her, and herself, and I'm a 2-year student.
Hi everyone, I'm Thompson. My pronouns are he, him, himself, and I'm an advancing standing MSW student.
Hi, my name is Nikki Vega. I use they, them pronouns, and I am a 32-month student.
All right, so working at NYU Silver, I get to hear a lot of people's stories about their journey to NYU and their journey to the field of social work. So I'm wondering, what was your journey like, and why did you choose NYU?
Sure. So for me, I'm doing my master's degree a little ways into my career. My undergraduate degree was in urban planning, public policy, and public administration, and I worked for about 10 years in a nonprofit career in Chicago, which is where I'm from. And then a couple years ago, I decided to do Peace Corps service, so I went and joined the Peace Corps. While I was in the Peace Corps, I realized a couple things. One is that I wanted to continue doing some international work in my future, in my career. And the other is that the disciplines that I had been trained in my undergrad did not really fully prepare me to do the level of community building that I wanted to. So that really prompted me to get an MSW to learn the discipline of social work and apply it in a community setting. I chose NYU because, to my knowledge, it's the only university in America where you can do 1 full year of your MSW outside of the country. So I had the opportunity to do my first full year of study and fieldwork in Shanghai, China. And for me, as someone who's hoping to be working outside of the US again in the future, that was a really incredible experience.
So I studied international development in my undergrad, and then like Carly, I did the Peace Corps in West Africa and Cameroon. And I loved my time there, and one of the things I really loved about it was the opportunity to be on the ground, work within a community, listen to the needs of the community, and then incorporate that into the work I was doing. So I knew when I came back to New York, I would want to be working in a similar kind of community development role. So I took a job as a case manager in an eviction prevention program in the South Bronx. And there again, I was working one-on-one with people, and it was really valuable work. And we would have 2-hour intakes, and during those intakes and the subsequent work I would do with my clients, I felt like I was really connecting, and I was almost working in a therapeutic role because so much would come up. And so I really wanted to develop those skills, get some formal training, and become a therapist. And I chose social work in large part because I was interested in those structural factors that I'd been exposed to in that work and some of the work I'd done abroad, and wanted to incorporate those in a social justice lens into my work. And at NYU, I'm a Coverdell Fellow, which is a Peace Corps affiliated fellowship, so that made the education more affordable, and I could be in New York where I wanted to study.
So when I was throughout my undergraduate career, I was pretty sure that I wanted to be a doctor. I knew that I wanted to help people, and it was a really big part of my motivating factors. But I was a sociology major, and then I had to take chemistry for pre-med, and I decided that maybe I could not be a doctor. So I ended up becoming a women and gender studies and sexuality studies major along with sociology, and I became really, really involved in activism. Started learning about feminist theory and social justice, and I realized that I could help people in a way that I didn't have to take chemistry. So I got really more involved in a social work path, and doing so, I got involved with power-based personal violence prevention, and I really, really enjoyed the programming and event planning aspect and raising awareness and the interactions that I got to have with students as I was providing them with these resources. And then I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, so I took a year off after undergrad, and then the 2016 election happened, and I realized that the world might explode, I have to do something. I want to be able to contribute positively, especially since a bunch of people's lives were potentially at stake. And after making that decision, it was a little late in the application process for MSW programs, and even though most of the MSW programs in New York were still accepting applicants, NYU, the admissions worked really hard to help me throughout the process since I was applying so late, and I just really felt welcomed and wanted. And since I knew I wanted to be in New York, I figured might as well go to NYU because it's NYU. So that's pretty much what brought me here.
Yeah, well, for me, being raised by a social worker, the values and the goals and the ethics of the profession were really instilled within me at a very early age. Having the opportunity to engage in extensive volunteerism within my community and see the impact that giving back and supporting others had on making the community around you a better place really motivated me. And so I chose to pursue my bachelor's in social work at a very early time, and throughout my experience there, it was really incredible having the opportunity to gain experience in different field settings and work with clients directly on a micro level, and in addition to working administratively at a macro level. I was just very inspired by the field. I knew that it was a very unique opportunity to make long-lasting change on a multitude of levels. So I was passionate, and I knew that this field was right for me because it was so customizable, and the opportunities were truly endless. And within that undergrad, I got experiences through being elected to my student government association. I served as the president of the Phi Alpha Honor Society, which just further cemented my passion and my love for this field, and also my belief that this was truly the best field for me, and the best field just to support others in need. And so, in considering a master's program, having graduated with a 4.0, I wanted to go to one of the best schools in the country. I applied to the top 5, and I got wonderful scholarships and wonderful opportunities. But in coming to NYU, there was just no other experience interacting with the faculty here. That was really the distinguishing factor. I mean, coming in, it truly felt like a home experience. People that truly cared about me, were passionate about my story, and passionate about providing opportunities for me to be comfortable here and happy here, and also leave here with just a wonderful future ahead. And so I was really grateful for that, and just the genuine approach that was provided, it really made the difference.
Let me start over. I went to NYU in my undergrad for acting, and I've been at NYU in some capacity or another for about 6 years. So after I graduated from NYU, I worked at NYU, so I'm very familiar, and it was one of the huge incentives for me applying, since going a break from your master's program in undergrad, it's like a whole new experience, especially studying something that people would consider not very academic. I knew that I wanted to go to a place that was going to be familiar and that would help me with the transition, and for me that just happened to be NYU, since I had called NYU home for so long. I also had looked into other schools. I actually did non-matric courses at Hunter College, so which was great. But one of the great things that I have continued to appreciate about NYU is the open campus. I think for some who are looking for a tight-knit community, Silver is kind of perfect because you have such a very small school in such a large institution, so you get that small town campus feel when you're in the building, and then you can step out and then there's people from all over the world really, but you know that they are probably associated with NYU in some factor. And as for social work, as I mentioned, I went to school for acting. I was an actor for a little bit, and I always thought art was an accessible form of change, and I wanted to just elevate that by studying change, I guess, in a more academic context, and gaining the clinical skills to do therapy, community organizing, and policy analysis.
So speaking of being, having people from all around the world, part of NYU's mission is to be a university in and of the globe and in and of the city. Have any of you participated in one of the study abroad programs?
Not have the pleasure.
Not yet, but I am looking forward to having the opportunity come J term to attend our abroad class in Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Nice. Very cool. And Carly, do you want to kind of speak a little bit more about studying abroad? Though it was a year and not one of our shorter programs.
Sure, yeah. So I'm in the Shanhai, New York program. So actually, when my MSW is done, we'll have spent half of my time abroad in Shanghai, China. I thought it was really an invaluable experience. I think that being in a classroom and being in the field with people of different culture was really, really, really beneficial to me. One thing you learn a lot about in social work school is cross-cultural competence and cultural humility, and so I think being able to put that into practice every single day was really great. It's the biggest connection from the classroom to the field. I also found a lot of value being supervised by someone who was from a different culture than me and someone who actually, spoke English as a second language. I thought that was a really beneficial experience to me to learn about how to work as a professional in a different environment. Although I will say that if you come to school in New York City, you can find everyone in the world in New York City. So you can have a cross-cultural experience anywhere that you're placed in New York City.
Such a diverse, incredible place. Yeah.
Definitely. So tell us a bit about your current placements. Where are you now?
I can start. You may have heard of my placement. I am placed at NYU Silver School of Social Work. I am within the Department of Student Affairs. I'm actually the MSW intern for the Office of Career and Professional Development. So, and the Office of Career and Professional Development at NYU Silver is brand new. It's an area that actually just was created this year. So even though NYU Silver has had career and professional development efforts, obviously, and areas in the past, this is the first time we had ownership over this area. So part of what my field placement is about, to give you a little bit of background about what I'm interested in, is I'm on the macro track. So there's not a lot of macro people at this school, macro students, and there's not a lot of macro opportunities. So I'm really lucky in that I was able to from early on recognize that I wanted to get more involved in macro social work. So I expressed that interest and was able to find a lot of different opportunities for field placement for my second year. So I indicated that I was interested in higher education because I felt that that is the perfect way to encapsulate everything to do with social work. The entire spectrum from micro, meso, and macro, in that I can do event planning and programming, but also I have the opportunity to do one-on-one career coaching in my capacity. So part of what I've been doing is, like I mentioned, I get a lot of experience with programming. I'm currently tasked with planning the Silver Alumni Career Panel, Silver Alumni Speaker Series, and being the liaison between NYU Silver and the Wasserman Center for Career Development in order to bring resources to campus for our students. I'm also doing some career coaching, helping MSW students like myself figure out, what they want to do, because social work is such a big field, and you can come in thinking that you want to do something, and then 6 months later have a completely different vision and not really know what to do. And we only have 2 years at this school, some of us, and for those 2-year students, it can seem really, really fast. And for advanced standing students, you're only here for a year. You want to give them as much support as possible. So I'm really happy that I'm able to utilize all of the skills that I think that NYU Silver has taught me in order to give back to NYU Silver students. So.
Yeah, similarly, being a primarily macro-oriented and interested student, I gained a lot of macro experience in my undergrad. I did a lot of higher education based work, and I knew going into my master's that I was passionate about supporting students, addressing their needs, and similarly providing opportunities through career and professional development as well as social and interpersonal connection. So, coming into this school, I was provided an opportunity to join our NYU Silver Student Affairs Office as the Office of Inclusive Engagement and Student Life MSW intern. A wonderful opportunity to work directly with our student leaders and groups, highlight the wonderful experiences and initiatives in which they engage on a daily basis, develop programs and activities to better support their need and develop a community among students here, which has been wonderful. A few projects that I'm involved in currently, along with Mary, is developing the Grand Challenges for Social Work Student Competition, the first in the country. We are a leader in this initiative, which we're very proud of, and which is a wonderful opportunity just to, to work with our students on their passions, as well as some of the most critical tasks that are, bestowed upon our field to make change within our community and globally. So that's one way. I'm also, tasked with developing the Social Justice and Diversity Grant Conference, which is another wonderful initiative which Silver has engaged in over the past 3 years. And similarly, it's a competition that is based on elevating the interests of our students, providing opportunities for them to gain presentation experience, research experience, and really just showcase their talents, their unique talents and abilities to not only the NYU community but the world. Outside of that, I've been working on a passion project which is based on elevating our engagement with sexual assault and awareness prevention through an active bystander campaign. So, creating education, training, and awareness for some of our professionals who will be working very closely with, that population within their professional exploits. So it's truly a great field placement, very challenging, and I feel like, I don't leave the office without putting my all in every single day, and that's exactly what I looked for within a field placement, just to be challenged and to get those opportunities to get really the best out of myself.
You have to leave.
Sure, I can go. So I am also focused on macro practice and social work. My field placement this year is actually in philanthropy. I'm working at the New York Women's Foundation, so it is a non-traditional place where you would find social workers. But I am sort of a non-traditional student with a non-traditional career, so it's actually a really, really great placement for me. So like I said, my field placement is the New York Women's Foundation, which is actually the largest women's-focused philanthropy in the United States. So they fund primarily small grassroots community-led organizations that support women, girls, and gender non-conforming individuals. And they also fund collective action and are active in advocacy at a regional and national level. So my role, what I do is I work directly with the Vice President of Strategic Planning and Government Relations, who is an MSW and who is my supervisor. And so we are currently now working on doing a 3-year strategic plan, finishing writing a 3-year strategic plan, which is an amazing skill to be gaining right before I'm going back into the labor market. And I also help with some government relations stuff, which looks like basically kind of finding opportunities to connect the very small grassroots organizations that the foundation funds with some opportunities in government, or educate some legislators and elected officials about that. So I find it to be really fascinating work. It's really made me think about where social workers should be in positions that you don't often think social workers should be. And how much a strengths and empowerment and anti-racist and anti-oppressive approach can really be a benefit to a wide array of work out there.
Okay, I'll go. Since people are looking at me. I think I'm the only person on this panel who's not graduating in May. I have another year here, and I am in my first year placement. I'm placed at the Ali Fournier Center, which is a homeless shelter for LGBTQ youth. I'm a case manager. Most of my clients have some kind of substance use issue or a severe mental illness. I really love it. It worked out. I want to work with the LGBTQ population, and it just happened to work out. It's great. I really enjoy it.
Cool. And as I mentioned earlier, I really wanted to gain some of those clinical skills and go on to become a therapist. So my placement is at the New York State Psychiatric Institute, which is an uptown state psychiatric hospital, and it's affiliated with Columbia Presbyterian, New York Presbyterian. And within that, I'm at the Children's Day Unit, which is a day treatment outpatient program for adolescents who have severe anxiety disorders and an assortment of other comorbid mental health situations. And within that, I do individual treatment both with the students and with their families. So a lot of psychoeducation, talking to the parents about things that they can do at home to best facilitate the treatment that we're doing at the school and at the program. And then also running 2 groups a week with my co-intern, and then lots of training opportunities. And being in a big hospital has that benefit where we're constantly surrounded by all these great researchers who are at the forefront of mental health research and neurological research. So lots of information about like a whole assortment, and I'm constantly invited to all these great training opportunities. That's one of the best benefits. I feel like I'm learning every day, so it's a great program.
Fantastic. So, especially for folks who are in their second year placement, in what ways do you think you've grown since your previous placements?
You know, I think I can speak to that a little bit. So the benefit of coming into this environment with the BSW, I began, getting experience through internships my sophomore year of college. So, each year, there was a different environment, different challenge and a different experience and different opportunities as a result of that. So, in my senior year of my undergrad, I worked in an integrated healthcare facility. Primarily, I'm a health-based social worker. That's my primary field of interest, and after this I will be pursuing a PhD in public health. But, so the difference between that experience and this experience, well, I feel it's a completely different context. At that point I was working with clients who presented with a variety of different critical health issues, ranging from comorbid diagnosis to addiction and severe mental health challenges, or very, very serious health complications such as cancer and other diagnoses. So, it was primarily clinically focused. I operated as a therapist in that capacity. Working, daily with those clients, presented its different challenges. And now within this context, I've really grown in my way of, being able to utilize, multidimensional skills within my social work capacity. So I'm able to still, employ a lot of my clinical, skill through directly working with students and student groups and understanding what their needs are and how I might address them with the resources and the available, capacities that we have at Silver. But I also utilize a meso and macro lens and understanding how to develop programs, activities, and so forth that can really help engage our student population. So I think I really just developed my understanding of the field. I really became more aware of truly what a social worker is and how we have no limitations within this field, and that we can use our level of education, our level of experience to just to work in a multitude of ways. And so I think I've just been really challenged to look outside of the traditional mindset or understanding of what a social worker is in the clinical sense, and be able to use that wide range of skills and abilities across the scale of social work.
Going off of that a little bit. So my first year placement was with the CUNY Service Corps at the New York City College of Technology. CUNY Service Corps is awesome. You should look it up in case you're interested. And I really, really loved that. So I knew I wanted to work in higher education because that's a population that I've just been comfortable in ever since I was an undergrad. And I am very, very lucky in that I'm one of the few students who, when I was a first year and filled out my placement forms, I specifically asked to be put in a higher education setting, and I was. Which, when you're a first year student, that's like winning the lottery. It's like you got placed somewhere you chose. It's great. And I was really excited. But I was really thrown into that experience because for different reasons, I had to kind of supervise myself a lot. So I got into a work ethic habit that I thought, it was working at the time. But then when I got into this new placement with NYU Silver, I realized that I had no idea what working hard really was like. And I actually have learned a lot in my professionalism. Being the career and professional development intern has made me take far more control of my own professionalism because I'm very aware of the fact that I'm representing this office and that other students sometimes look to me as somebody who has answers and knowledge about these things. So I should have the answers and the knowledge about these things. And it's been really helpful because I've been really accountable, and I've just been really taking charge of my own learning and my own accountability out of my professionalism, and realizing that this is not something that's going to fall into my lap. This is something I have to work for, and that if I don't succeed, it's because I wasn't taking enough chances to increase my professionalism. So through my supervisor, who's the Associate Director of Career and Professional Development, she has done so much to help me get to this point and to be more aware of my strengths and my weaknesses and work towards, making myself the best social worker that I can be in my setting. So I've definitely grown so much in these like 1.5 years.
Thank you.
I've only had one placement.
Oh
so.
yeah, that's true. So I'll speak a little bit, I guess, to my clinical experience, which is, I think one of the ways I've grown so much that I've noticed more recently is that sometimes the way that I best support, so last year I was also working with adolescents, and I realized the ways to sometimes best support my clients are so much more nuanced than I used to realize, and sometimes the best way in the program I'm at now, the best treatment is often something that sort of challenges and pushes back against the client's assumptions and the way they're looking at the world, in a supportive way, within a really supportive, trusting context, but that's something that doesn't always come naturally, and so that's something I've really grown into over the past year, and so kind of just learning how to be a better clinician in situations that throw me for a loop all the time. And then I'll also say, I think something I've really understood is sort of how to take an anti-racist and anti-oppressive lens in my work, and so often social workers are the one bringing in that lens, and so I really feel this responsibility at my internship where I'm on a multidisciplinary team. There's psychologists, there's psychiatrists, and sometimes they're looking to find a medical explanation for everything, and it's me and the other social work team members who are saying, hey, what about these environmental factors? So that's something I think I've really been able to hone through exposure to other students, exposure to different programs that the school provides, and that's something I really appreciate as I go into my career.
So what's something that you wish you knew before you started school? You can think on that. Think back to your pre-social work selves.
Well, one of the things that I can say right off the bat, as a 32-month student, you go in knowing that it's going to be hard to work full-time while in school, that I don't think I really understood how hard it was going to be, specifically when I get into field placement. 32-month students start field placement in the summer when everybody else is kind of on break. So that's really when you kick it into high gear. And I also, I think, just naturally would try to set myself into a relaxed state when summer hit, especially for work. But I didn't really, I kind of wish I had a better perspective on that. And then another thing, I kind of wish I knew that it was okay that I didn't know what I was doing when I first got to my internship. And it was nice having that cohort to come to and be like, oh my gosh, are they making you do a million things that you don't know how to do? It's like, yes, and it's like, okay. And it's like realizing that the agencies are very busy and their priority is the clients, so sometimes it can feel like you're not getting enough training, but really the best way is sometimes you have a really great supervisor, and sometimes it's just learn by doing, and that's totally fine, and that is probably also how staff, not just interns, but staff learn how to do things as well, different from agency to agency. But I wish I would have, if I could go back, I would just slap myself in the face and be like, it's okay, you'll figure it out.
Yeah, no, I feel like for me, there's I feel like two things that I wish one, that I was convinced before I applied to social work school that since I took a year off, that I was going to be so behind and that everybody was going to be 21 years old, fresh out of college. That is so not the case. That might be the case for you, and that is okay. But the majority of the people in my classes took time off in between undergrad and graduate school. Most people I know. And a year is a small amount of time to take off in my experience that I've learned, is that most people worked in the field for a little bit. Or a lot of career changers are in this field. So that no matter what time you're starting this degree, it's the right time. That it doesn't matter how old you are, where you are in your career, what career you're in, it's the right time to do it. Another thing I really wish I knew, or that I wish I specifically last year, is to take breaks. We're supposed to, for our field placement, supposed to work 21 hours a week, that is it. Last year I was working 30 hours a week, and I thought that would make, I was like, oh, I'll be ahead of the game, I'll be better because I'm working more, and I just got burned out. We're students, we're students, and I need to, and something that I wish I thought about was that I need to take care of myself a lot better than I did when I was an undergrad, because you are expected to have a real job. Your field placement is like a real job, and if you've never had a real job before, like me when I got here, it can be a little alarming. So to really take care of yourself, and like, even though self-care has kind of become a buzzword and not that many people really like it, it's so important. Paced breathing, look it up, it's the best thing in the world. Yeah, that's me.
So something Nikki alluded to earlier that I really appreciated was that we're at this great big institution that has so many things available. And I wish that, like, from the day I walked into Silver, I had looked to the broader context of the university to think about, like, opportunities I wanted to pursue. And right now I'm working part-time at the NYU Furman Center, which is a research center that involves other schools, not Silver. And I'm working there, and they do urban policy, a lot of research and data analysis on homelessness, gentrification, all these really important topics that fall within the work I'm doing in social work and give me a really interesting context, but also expose me to, like, researchers in different fields, faculty from other schools, and I really appreciate that. So I'm so glad I've, like, had that opportunity. I always encourage people to think about themselves not just as Silver students, but, like, you're an NYU student, and that's a great opportunity, and there's so much going on both at Silver and in the broader context. So, like, getting involved in everything that there is to get involved with, but also taking breaks.
Yeah, similarly to something that Mary alluded to earlier, I think just the importance of self-care and recognizing how you owe it to yourself to take your time to address your own needs and to just be there for yourself and really take a step back when needed. Throughout my undergrad, I worked 30 hours a week. I had a 25-hour internship, full-time classes, and I was president of the Honor Society and an elected representative from the Student Government Association. I still work 30 hours a week, and I do a lot of work outside of that. And so really just finding that balance. You don't really have to be Superman in every situation, and I think it's really important to understand your limitations and work within them, because a phrase that I hear commonly around here is that you can't pour out of an empty vessel. And so you have to provide that self-nourishment. You really have to take care of yourself in order to best maximize your ability to support those in need. And it's been a really strong lesson that I've learned through my experience, and one that I'm grateful for, because going forward into my profession, I would exactly know my needs and how to address them on a day-to-day. So yeah, very, very happy to have learned that lesson.
I'm also going to add one more thing, some CPD intern. Career and professional development, it's on you. And you don't think about that, but it's really on you. It's an accountability thing. So start networking right now. Once you're done with this, email all of us. Be like, hey, love that. Network. 85% of jobs filled through networking. Here we go.
If you would like to get in contact with them, you can email silver.champions@nyu.edu, and I will connect you with one of these lovely champions or another current student that has similar interests to you. So are any of you in student groups? If so, tell us a little about it.
I am the master or jester of student groups. I say jester because I am almost in too many student groups. I am the president of the Graduate Student Association, which is our student council for the MSW students. I'm also a co-leader for Pride in Practice, which is an LGBTQ-focused group, and one of the co-leaders of SWAP, which is Social Workers on Public Policy, which is exactly what it sounds like. Social workers looking at public policy. Yeah.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, my timeline, availability, and schedule does not afford me the opportunity to join many student groups, but I did have the opportunity to become involved with our Graduate Student Association as the Advanced Standing Representative, which I'm highly grateful for. Working with a wonderful group of individuals who are very passionate about their community, very passionate about our peers, and doing the best that we can, just to engage civically and support and build this community. So it's been a wonderful experience, just working in that capacity. But outside of that, within my role as the Inclusive Engagement Student Life MSW intern, I do work directly with all of our student groups and help support them and all of their needs in terms of programming and activities and just generally social and interpersonal development. And so it's been wonderful to learn about just the myriad of different things that our groups are getting involved in. and the wonderful change and impact that they're having on our local community here. Without them, we certainly would, I don't think, be as incredible as we are. I think, our student groups are so passionate and dedicated to their various interests, and it truly shines through in the events and activities that they do in their own time. Our students really balance a multitude of responsibilities and needs outside of this setting. So to come in and really dedicate and invest as much time as they do into this environment, it really just speaks to how special NYU Silver is as a program, as a school.
I was gonna say, you basically are part of every student group with your internship. So, I am the president of Silver. We just changed our name. So Silver Women Worldwide, previously Social Workers for Women Worldwide, and we focus on global issues relating to and affecting women and non-binary folks. Additionally, I'm also a Student Leadership Council Fellow. So the Student Leadership Council is a group of students who are there to help out incoming students at orientation. So what we do is, when you come to orientation, you get put into a group of people who will be in your practice class, and then Student Leadership Council members are there to be orientation leaders, help you throughout those few days and support you throughout the entire year. So I have a group of 30 students that I've been helping to mentor throughout this year. But yeah, and I'm also will be bringing a macro social work student network club to campus, because in order to raise awareness of and seek out resources for macro focused students.
I'm one of the leaders of the White Students Challenging Racism group. So a few years ago, a group of white Silver students felt that there wasn't enough being done to organize around race by white students, and so the idea of the group is to look at ourselves self-critically and think about our own role in racism and oppression, kind of ask those hard questions of ourselves and of each other, holding each other accountable. So we have processing meetings around those topics once or twice a month, and then we also plan events. We're planning an anti-racism and social work agency practice in a couple weeks. So that'll be a panel discussion with a couple different clinicians coming to talk about their own experiences with anti-racism in the field. So that's one of the things I do. I'm also a Student Leadership Council Fellow, like Mary mentioned, an orientation leader, and I really enjoyed that and have been keeping in touch with my cohort, which includes Eli. So.
Awesome. So I know that there's still about a semester, or full semester, and some change left in the academic year, but what's been your favorite class so far?
Yeah, for me, it's undoubtedly Practice 3. I had the wonderful opportunity to work with an incredible mind in our field, Susan Stone, who just has a vast array of experiences that range from both micro and meso and macro, based work. So it's incredible just to learn, just directly from such a passionate and experienced individual. Just to better understand the theories that we utilize when we engage in direct practice, and also be able to make the connections between groundwork and grassroots social work and the policies that help enable us to best do the work that we're so passionate about. So Practice 3 has truly been my most incredible class that I've had the opportunity to engage in thus far. I think it's just very, very helpful in just continuing to frame my understanding of this field and the potential opportunities that I have going forward. So it's definitely my favorite class.
I really enjoyed HB2 because I had a professor.
Human behavior.
Yeah, human behavior in the social environment 2. You take 1, 2, and 3 at Silver, and I had Professor Gabriella Cassandra, and she's great. She teaches groups as well, but it was actually the students. It was the combination of her and the students in the class. It was like the most diverse class I've ever had in my entire life, and there was only like 9 of us. We had at least 3 people from other countries. We had people from different LGBTQ identities, different races, and so the perspectives really came into play in the group conversations. I learned so much, not just human behavior in the social environment, but I really got this more culturally humble experience, as well as like a global perspective, which I think and you might not get in other classes because we don't have very many globally focused classes or really opportunities besides study abroad. But so that was really awesome.
I'm having such a hard time with this because I've taken so many classes that I've really enjoyed. I mean, to speak to what Eli was mentioning about Susan Stone, Professor Stone is amazing. I took, so as I mentioned, not a clinical focused student, I'm very macro, but I decided to take cognitive behavioral interventions with Susan Stone over the summer, mainly because I needed an elective, but also because I thought it was just interesting, and I learned so much, not about administering cognitive behavioral therapy, but about my own mental health. That I did a little shameless plug for paced breathing before, and I learned about that in that class. I learned about progressive muscle relaxation, which I now do every single morning and every single night, and has done wonders for my anxiety because of that class. So even though I don't plan on being a clinician and performing CBT, the things I learned in that class, I'll never forget because it did great things for me. I'm also currently right now, class isn't over yet, so I can't say it's my favorite class, exercising leadership in the public and nonprofit sector. And it's an adaptive leadership framework course that is about, learning how to become an effective leader. And it's definitely the most interesting class I've taken, and it is very, very outside the box for NYU Silver. It's not at all really about what you would think social work education is, but that's exactly why it's super important, because leadership skills are not valued enough in this field, and we don't really see social workers as leaders, especially in the nonprofit and public sector. So I really like that class because it's in line with my own goals, and also because I think it talks about an important message with what social workers are capable of.
I know it's a tough question. So many good ones. I think my favorite was last semester I took a class called Anthropological Perspectives in Global Health with a professor named Deborah Paget, who's on the faculty here. And she's a brilliant mind. She's a public health and anthropologist expert, PhD. And her work focuses on both global mental health and homelessness abroad and in New York. So she has a wide range of interests, and she's just a wonderful facilitator. She has done so much research herself in India, in New York, all over the world, and I really appreciated the opportunity to learn from her and to get kind of a global perspective that brought me back to my undergrad, which was in international development, but with this new social work lens, and I really appreciated the chance to do that. And then I connected with her after that class and have been doing some research with her ongoing, so I really appreciated that connection too.
That's awesome. So sort of speaking to post-graduation, I have sort of a two-part question. What are some of the kind of jobs that you know of various alumni? Where are they? That's a question that we're getting a lot from the audience. What are alumni doing? And also, what do you plan on doing after graduation? I know, sorry, big question.
I love it. So through my position, I have the opportunity to engage with alumni all the time. As I mentioned, I plan the Silver Alumni Career Panels and the Silver Alumni Speaker Series. So I do a lot of connecting with alumni, and I can tell you alumni are everywhere. So we have different alumni career panels focusing on different fields of social work every single month, and we're having to turn alumni away every month because they want to come talk to us, talk to the students about the fields that they're in. So today we had one about working in mental health and health settings, and we had people represented from hospitals, from the Mental Health Service Corps, from private practice. Coming up in December, we have macro and meso integrated practice alumni panels, and we have people working in the UN, in migration studies and research all over the board about where alumni are. As I mentioned, I'm interested in higher education. I'm very lucky because there are a lot of NYU Silver alumni who work at NYU Silver. So I've done a lot of informational interviews with people who work at this school who are working in higher education. So I'm actually going to be attending NASPA, which is like the National Student Affairs higher education organization. I'm going to be attending the conference to start my job search in February, or March rather. So I'm hoping to work in higher education. Ideally, I would like to be a career coach working at Westerman, so if they're watching, hire me. but I know higher education is where I want to be, so I'm looking everywhere. Residential education, student conduct, power-based personal violence, bystander intervention. Didn't know you were doing that, that's awesome. But yeah, so.
And Mary, do you want to talk to the audience just a bit about what Wasserman is?
Yeah, so the Wasserman is it's the career center for all of NYU, and it's giant. It is a giant center for where you can get all of your career services needs. They do career coaching, they do workshops about resume, cover letter, job search strategies, salary negotiation, and they have specific workshops tailored for each school. So we have an NYU Silver Wasserman liaison who is specifically charged with providing career services and workshops to NYU Silver. So what part of through my position is I've had the opportunity to partner with them a lot, and we have, coming up next week, we have social work, I believe we have a resume and cover letter workshop, and a targeted job search strategies workshop coming up. So really, they're just about helping students to engage in their professional development, because as I said, it's a voluntary thing. This is not something people are going to do for you, but Wasserman is there to support you and give you all the resources you need.
And then quickly, other folks kind of speak to what they're doing, and then we have some questions about the 32-month program. Nikki.
I'll quickly say my plans for after Silver was going to be law school, but then I recently got a job, which I start on Tuesday at the center, the LGBTQ center in New York City, as the TGNC support services coordinator. So actually, that's going to be my plan after Silver. Just stay in there and kind of. TGNC stands for trans and gender nonconforming. I'll try to build a career at the center, which I'm very excited about. It's kind of like my dream since I was a kid. And I think law school is still in the future. I've come to accept the fact that it's okay to go to school when you're past 30. I know everybody past 30 is going to be like, shut up. But so I'm totally just going to put that on the back burner and just see where my career goes at the center.
That's awesome. Yeah, similarly, I was also interested in law school for a long time. However, just critically thinking about my passions, my interests, and the impact I want to make on the world, I knew that health was the right choice, and just due to the disparity and that marginalized and oppressed communities experience long-term positive health outcomes are few and far between for many of our most oppressed communities. So I'm very passionate about public health. I do seek to receive my PhD, and have actually submitted a few applications thus far. So in long term, I aim to work for the CDC or within a public health department and do outreach for some of those communities who are in need. But outside of that, I'm an entrepreneur spirit, and so I've actually already engaged in my own entrepreneurial work in my undergrad, and seek to continue doing so as well. Potentially partnering with some of my colleagues from Central Connecticut State University. And even more long-term outside of that, I do seek to be an elected representative, within the state and then hopefully federal level. Coming up.
Here's my vote. So, as I mentioned, I'm interested in clinical work. So, after I finish, I'll take the licensing exam and then hopefully go into a clinical sort of role. I would love to keep working with adolescents, but I'm pretty open. I always joke that I love every population I've ever worked with so far, so I can imagine having like 5 part-time jobs and just going to one each day. And something that's great about Silver is that you get to see through the faculty and through the other students and alumni that you can wear so many hats as a social worker. And as I mentioned, I'm really interested in urban policy and would love to kind of be involved in that, even alongside the clinical work that I hope to do. So I hope to kind of play both those roles and see where my career leads me.
Awesome. Policy.
Yeah. So this is a question primarily for Nikki, but I think definitely everyone, because you all are working outside of it. How do you balance work and school? So, 32-month program, definitely there are challenges there, but also doing so as a full-time student. And how do you balance work, school, and your field placement, since you were doing a lot of things at once, so many hours in your day?
You just do your best. Time management is so crucial. The better your time management skills are coming into the program, the better everything is just going to be for the rest of the program. It's not easy, but you do get used to it as anything else. The hardest part is in the summer when you start your field placement. You've had a year of academic classes and you're like, oh, I got this, I can do this. Come to Silver a couple nights a week. Maybe if you're smart, you get all your classes in one day so you don't have to come to campus multiple times. But then when that field placement hits you, you're doing 13 hours of field placement, but you're doing it, unlike the other programs, you're doing it for a whole year versus just 9 months or even less than that, I think, if you're in this 16-month program. But yeah, I think it's really important to also like communicate to your in your interpersonal relationships to be like, hey, I don't really have a lot of time to socialize, so it'd be really great if you could come to me, or just hang out for the next 3 years. To get your, and I don't mean to say that in a bad way, it's really important to surround yourself with people who are going to support you during this process. It's not only time-consuming work, but it's very emotionally heavy work, social work. So surround yourself with good people, get some time management skills, and about field, I think the concern is about when do you go to field. For a 32-month program, your field works around your work schedule and your class schedule. So my field placements on Friday evenings, Saturday all day, and then half a day on Sunday. Other people go Monday through Friday every day after work, and then have their weekend free. Depends on the agency that you interview with and what you work out with them, but it does cater to your work and school schedule.
Yeah, I mean, just going off of that, time management is so critical. One thing that I often tell students is just keying into that discipline. Right? Ultimately, how motivated are you? How badly do you want to succeed, and what are you willing to sacrifice in doing that? As I mentioned, for the past 4 years, I work 30 hours a week. 25 hours in my internship, full-time classes, and a variety of different roles within the school environment. So truly keying into that dedication and that ambition. Understanding your passions and your goals and what it takes to reach that. So for me, every single day, I wake up, visualizing, my aspirations, and I go to sleep thinking about them. And there's nothing more important than me having the opportunity to achieve them. So making those sacrifices and understanding that, it's only temporary, and that the long-term payoff is truly significant and truly worth it. So, and ultimately, through that type of dedication, it pays off in more ways than you can imagine. I've received, twice or 3 times what I could have ever, imagined, that I give out into my world and into, my time commitments. And so there's benefit from, having that dedication and that work ethic. So, just really being goal-oriented and sticking to your guns.
So this is sort of a tricky question, but I'm curious about you guys' perspective on it. We have a question about doing an extended or part-time program versus getting a fully immersive experience. We're just kind of the pros and cons of, with the extended or 32-month program, you tend to go for 3 years or longer versus kind of diving in full-time.
Maybe I could speak to diving in full-time, which I do a lot of that. I am fortunate enough to have the advancing opportunity, and in doing so, a lot of these theories, these concepts, the work that we do is very fresh and familiar to me, so it's just muscle memory at this point in terms of, the papers that I have to write, and in terms of a lot of the work that I have to do on a day-to-day within the class setting. So for me, it feels very natural, and it's just kind of building upon the momentum that I've established over the past, 4.5 years that I've studied.
Cool. And how does that feel? I think particularly for folks who didn't come from social work. So this is like sort of new and immersing yourself into this new environment.
I mean, so I was actually trying to decide between a part-time and full-time program. I was deciding between NYU full-time or Fordham part-time. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to mention other schools, but I did it. And I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. And for me, it was more about time. I wanted to finish in a shorter amount of time, honestly. And it also was, I was honestly worried about not having a background in social work, and I thought, incorrectly now, I know this, that if I extended my, my education, that I was going to get stagnant for me. That if I wasn't in a field placement my first year, that I would get scared, because that's just the type of person that I am. I'm very much like, if I don't just jump in, I'll never get into the pool. So and also it had to do with money. Full disclosure, I was offered more financially to do a full-time program than a part-time program. The part-time program oddly ended up being more expensive, which didn't make a lot of sense. So that's really what ended up happening for me. But I can honestly say that even though I took some time off, and it was a year, it wasn't that bad, I felt so supported by my professors. I can say this honestly, that I got an extension on like 75% of my assignments my first semester, because I was like, oh my gosh, school, how do I do this again? But everyone's in that same boat, and most are in a different, in that position, and professors are so understanding. So wherever you are and whatever you choose, people are going to work with you in order to make sure that you are feeling comfortable and in the right space for you. Not sure if that answered the question, but that's just how I feel about that scenario. And maybe people who maybe are in a different program.
Yeah, I get this question a lot. I think it's the biggest change or difference between the programs are actually the social aspect. I am fortunate enough to work currently, or I did work at NYU. So my office was very close to Silver, so I would pop over for events, and I'm in the graduate student association, so I got to know a lot of the student body. But I think if most of my cohort didn't really get that opportunity because they're here much later in the day. Not that there aren't Silver students. Graduate programs tend to have a lot of classes in the evening, but it's just a different. When you're in a extended or 32-month cohort, you're more socializing with the people in your cohort versus the 2-year cohorts, which are much larger, and even the advanced standing and 16-month program are larger than the 32-month cohort, which is only about 16 people. And I think NYU Silver is the student affairs office is growing and changing, so they're doing a lot. They're making a lot more initiatives to reach out to these extended programs. So by the time that you might enter the program, it'll be different than when I entered the program. But I know even as the GSA, we're trying to cater more of our events to those non-traditional students because we get it. For me, I was working at NYU, so I had tuition remission, which means that was my financial aid. I would not have been able to afford to go to the 2-year program, which, that's just my truth. Maybe it's different for you and when you apply. But I will say that NYU's part-time program compared to other schools, there's not a lot of MSW schools that have a part-time program here in the city. They're getting more popular, and I would say it's due to NYU's success in allowing people to have a full experience while still being at part-time. And you get to know NYU very well when you're here a little bit longer.
Sure. So we have about 10 minutes left, so I just want to make sure that I'm getting through folks' questions. So feel free, not everyone has to answer every question. We have a question from the audience about when did you decide between clinical and macro? When did that decision point come for you?
Day I was born. Yeah, I always knew I wanted to be. The decision came to me. I realized when I learned about vicarious trauma that is something I'm very much at risk for. So vicarious trauma is basically when you are taking on the trauma of another person as your own, like you're feeling those feelings. And I'm a very empathetic person. That's why I'm in social work school. And I realized that I am better suited to deal with the structural and systemic issues than I am the individual because of my own personal history with various different things. I realized that I would just get too sad, and I didn't want to be sad. So even as much as I wanted to help people, I realized that I wouldn't get as burnt out if I was doing the macro field. And I love program developing, and I fell in love with it in undergrad, and when I realized that I could make a career out of basically being a student leader for my whole life by working in student affairs, I was like, let's do it, that sounds great. But it was a very complicated decision, especially since NYU Silver has a dramatically clinical curriculum. It's very, very, very clinical. If you are a macro student, you have to really pave your way here. And that's what I'm doing. I am paving my way. And a problem is that, it's 2-year school, so don't have a lot of time, but I'm making the time in order to make sure that if any of you are macro students, you are going to have a better experience, because that's just what social workers should do. I want you to have a better experience. So for me, it's just a matter of knowing myself. Maybe a more clinical person could answer.
Yeah, well, maybe similar, but the other side of it is that I've always kind of related to myself as an empath. I'm always curious to hear people's stories and curious about people's own thought processes. When I was in Cameroon with the Peace Corps, I was on the peer support network, so people would call in anonymously, not confidentially, but anonymously, and kind of get support. And that was a role that I was peer elected onto. And I was like, I really like this work, and others see me in that role too. And that was a very validating experience. And then coming back here and working in the program I referred to earlier, where I was working one-on-one as a case manager, I really appreciated the opportunity to have that space with a client and be able to hear their story and kind of think through what was going on. And even though the focus wasn't on the therapy or the clinical work, it still always kind of went there. And so I really, I always appreciated that opportunity, and so I always kind of knew that clinical work was what I wanted to do.
Yeah, and just to clarify, NYU doesn't have specific tracks. You don't, while a lot of people I think come in knowing what they want to do, you don't have to choose right at the beginning. You can definitely take your time to sort of explore that.
But there are focused learning opportunities for your second year. So for me, as I mentioned, macro student, I'm a part of the macro focused learning opportunity, which is just a group of students who are also, and there's also a bunch of different palliative care, if you're interested in mental health, children, families, a lot of different focused learning opportunities for you.
Yeah, this is a program where definitely your electives aren't, you can focus them in an opportunity, and that's a really great way to build that specialty, you know, clinical or macro, or you can kind of take electives across a variety of areas. We have another question regarding how much do students sort of mingle between campuses or mingle between programs sort of within NYU? What's your experience about that?
I don't think there's a lot of mingling with extended versus 2-year or faster programs. We're learning how to be better about that. But I think the places where they do intersect are orientation as well as SLC. And if you're involved in student groups, then you kind of meet other people. I think that's pretty much how I met all of you.
Yeah.
So I think we're trying to figure out how to build more events in the evening times. It's difficult because then we're asking staff to come in later, but they're very kind and are trying to do it. So I think a lot of the socializing is actually up to you. Graduate programs tend to attract people who are trying to get in and get out, so it depends on how much you want to socialize. You want to hang out in the student lounge, which is where a lot of people hang out to do work and socialize. Totally up to you.
Have you found that to be true across social work satellite campuses, such as our campuses in Rochester and Rochester County and Rockland County?
So Westchester and Rockland.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, based on the location, it's really hard to socialize a lot with students from other campuses. But we are doing, there are Westchester and Rockland students who are Student Leadership Council members, so we have, and orientation again, we have that opportunity. And then, something that we've been trying to do, which is not really socializing, but about making sure our events are accessible, so having live streaming events similar to this, and recording our events to make sure that people from branch campuses see that. But unfortunately, there's not that much, hanging out that goes on between Washington Square and the branch campuses. Even less so at Shanghai. Can't get those people over here for some reason. So
Until year 2.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So and also one thing that I know that we, as specifically in our role as student affairs interns, that we want to increase the socialization across all NYU schools, not just within NYU Silver. We're trying to bridge connections with Wagner and NYU Steinhardt and Tandon, because we really believe that social workers we work best in teams and multidisciplinary teams. So we're trying to bridge those gaps. But like Nikki said, it's, graduate students are adults, they're busy, and it's hard to get people to, socialize all the time.
I will quickly add though, if you are interested in socializing with the other branch campuses and you are a Washington Square student, one way to do that is actually to take electives at the other campuses.
Yeah.
I took a mini elective, which is a 1 credit at Westchester campus, which is stationed in Sarah Lawrence. It is so beautiful, and it was so nice to get out of the city for a little bit. It was a $7 Metro North ride, and then I had my Metro card, so I got to use that on the bus, and it was just like so beautiful. Highly recommend it, and that's how I met some Westchester students.
Nice.
So our last question is about for folks who came from out of state, who are not kind of from the New York metro area. What was that transition like?
Yeah, to speak to that, I've actually been traveling around for much of my life, I'd say, growing up in Chicago, also living in Austin, Texas, doing my undergrad in Connecticut, and now moving on to the city. So I believe, the city has something for everybody. You can really find, something that you're interested in or opportunities to become engaged and involved very easily. It is a very tough transition in terms of maybe, the amount of people that are here and, becoming adjusted to some of the different elements of the city in terms of, high traffic and so forth, which is funny. We always hear, a couple honks during class and so forth, so there's always something going on. But I think the city is incredible and it's in its ability to bring people together from all walks of life. And as social workers, it's just so important to have that cross-cultural connection and communication and interaction, because I think in all aspects of our personal and professional development, that is key. So coming to New York City is a wonderful opportunity to gain more experience in interacting with others you may not have the chance to from your home community.
I'm from Point Pleasant, New Jersey, so that's metro enough,
I've been here for a while, so.
Yeah, I was living in New York for a couple of years, but one thing that Carly alluded to earlier is just how international it is, and I think that's just such a wonderful, that's not really about the transition, but it's something that I value every day about being here, and I never take it for granted.
The subway, though, that, from New Jersey, never rode the subway. Well, that was tough to get used to. You'll never be on time again. Ever.
It's out of your control.
Yes, it is.
It's great, though.
Everyone's like very understanding of it.
Yeah,
You
the
always
good thing,
have
though,
as
everybody's
excuse,
the same way.
It's true.
So it's fine.
I moved from Portland, Oregon about a year ago. I am not an MSW student here, but I am a staff member here, so I'm in year 2 of being in New York. This is what I tell students is like, if you can at all, visit. NYU is not a traditional campus, so you are in the city 100%.
Yeah.
That is amazing because you get all of Manhattan, but it also can be overwhelming if you don't know what you're getting into. So I say definitely have a chance to do that. Understand that you are getting to a place where there are millions of people here. It's one of the most densely packed places. If you have access to public transit where you're at, practice using public transit. That's a huge transition to driving places versus relying on that. I use Google Maps and City Mapper. I still use that to get around. I know my subway pretty well, but if I'm going somewhere new, I always check that. So just getting used to, I think, navigating the world through that is going to be important. But it's definitely, I think, doing so in a grad program. And as a staff member, I felt really welcome at NYU Silver. Everyone here is incredibly nice, and you do have this home base, sort of as Nikki referred to. So doing so in a grad program can maybe a way to kind of ease that transition.
You're ready to practice some of that fast walking skill because you're going to need it.
People in New York don't walk fast enough. I'm saying it now. New Jersey's faster.
Power walking 24/7.
Oh yeah, every day is a workout.
Yep. So thank you so much for joining us. If you have any other questions, please feel free to email silver.champions, and that is plural, at nyu.edu, and we can connect you with one of our lovely champions here. I can also connect you with someone else who's in another program that may have not been represented tonight. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great night, everyone.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Bye.